I read your bio, really exciting. I think the first place I want to begin, since before we started recording, we're talking about how you go hard on live performances. I see that there was a time you left Canada for Ireland, I believe. If you just want to take me through that period of your life and how it has informed what you now do as as an artist, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I finished high school and I kind of didn't. I'm from a really small town, as you know, Cranbrook, and I was just kind of wanting something more. I felt like I needed to explore, and I didn't want to go to school. I was looking for some big life experience. So I said, well, you know what, I'm going to move to Europe by myself. So I just decided to, and Ireland felt like a place that was really safe, English speaking, very similar to Canadians, very welcoming and friendly. And so I felt like it was a safe place to go as a solo female traveler. And I just got there, and then I fell in love with it. This was summer 2016.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, this is a place that I could really see myself living. But I didn't have that mindset yet. I was just like traveling and exploring. I wasn't doing too much music. It was actually kind of an opportunity to just learn more about myself. It was one
Hmm.
of those growing self learning experiences. And I ended up getting a work visa after I'd kind of lived there for like 3 months. I was like, you know what? Yep, this is where I want to be. I met all of like these amazing people, and I fell in love with the rest of Europe as well. I started working for Bank of Ireland, which is kind of funny. I recently did a CBC interview, and Sarah Penton, and she was like really fascinated by the fact that I used to fix credit card machines. So that was my job. I used to fix those little debit machines that you use at like businesses.
Like POSs, yes.
Yeah, like a
Point of sale
POS.
terminal. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was my job for like all the POS systems across Ireland. I was fixing them. And it was hilarious because it was so completely different from anything that I had done before, and it was so different from my music path. And I think I needed to do that. I think it helped me learn a lot of skills and learn more about myself too. So yeah, then I stayed in Ireland for about 3 years, and then I came home. My visa expired, and then COVID hit. So
Hmm.
that was that timeline.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I came home from Ireland and I wrote an entire album. My first album, Self Reflections.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that album was inspired by a lot of things that happened when I was in Ireland.
I see. I see. So yeah, that's so fascinating. Not very many people have that opportunity to go off, to go self-discover. And I think some of those themes that you've mentioned about you going to Ireland are reflected in this new record.
Well,
Um,
because
s-
I went back
oh, you,
this year. So
oh,
I came home. I'd been home for 3 years, I think, and then this year, once COVID was over, I went back to Ireland, back to where I used to live, to do like a
okay,
self-paced songwriting retreat. So
okay,
I went to this retreat center out in the country, out in the middle of nowhere, and I stayed in this cabin for like 2 weeks and just like holed up in there and wrote and like walked around and hung out with sheep and drank Guinness and hung out on the
oh,
beach.
oh, Guinness for sure. That should definitely help some writing. No, but I'm really excited to see how that journey unfolds for you. So we're gonna get to this album, but I want to just dart back a little bit because I'd love to know the origins of your musical background. I understand that you're from a very music centered family, but
Hmm.
how did that start to take shape when you were growing up in terms of music and just getting the support that you needed from the people who were most closest to you?
Yeah, I mean, I did grow up in a musical family. So before I was even born, my dad, my grandpa, my aunts were all really involved in country music. So my grandpa was in a band and he did like the Johnny Cash, Elvis sort of thing, which I think that I'm really inspired by now. And I didn't really realize it. You know, we don't realize it when we're younger, when we're like, you know, 5 to like 15 or even 20. I didn't even realize it. It's just been the last like 5 years, really. Um, so when I was growing up, there was always music playing, a lot of classic rock, a lot of like Fleetwood Mac, Heart, Van Morrison, Jackson Brown, The Doors, all of this kind of music. And that was always playing. And then when I would go, you know, to see my dad's family, like that side of my family, it was always like playing guitar around the campfires, singing songs, and like my aunts are amazing country singers. Like they just have this like innate talent. And I like we don't really know, like it's obviously my grandpa was a musician and is a singer, but it just kind of came out of nowhere. Like they just are so talented.
Yeah.
So that was always really, really inspiring growing up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to do this. And I think like just from a really, really young age, I was so in love with music and dancing. And I was always like performing and wanting to be like a star. I would sit my family down and I would like improvise these like musicals or like these like concerts, and I just like write these songs on the spot and have them all sit down and listen. So that was like really early days of me just like loving music and not knowing much about like creation or anything, but just kind of freestyling, if you will.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
then my parents put me in piano lessons when I was 5. So I've been playing piano for like 20 years.
Hmm.
And yeah, piano was like a huge turning point for me, knowing that like there was some structure to music rather than just like freestyling and dancing and singing. So that started structure for me for music. And then I went into school band and I went into choir in high school. And high school was where things like really came together for me, because I started writing. I guess I was like 15. I was younger when I started writing, actually. I think I was like 12. But I didn't really know how to write a song. And then I took this course in high school. We have a really special music program here in Cranbrook. And I
Okay.
took this course called Music, Composition, and Technology. So I was
Okay.
learning how to compose a song and how to use like an audio workspace, like Logic or Reason or whatever.
Gotcha.
And that really started like me becoming like an artist. So that really was like, okay, now I'm gonna start putting songs out. I was in this band called Wizard Lizard for a while. It was
Okay.
like pop punk, I guess, indie pop punk.
Okay.
That was when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I put out an EP called Violent Feel that is somewhere on the internet now and in a CD somewhere in my house.
Okay.
But it wasn't very commercially released. You know, I just put it out. And I had to do it for that course. We had to put together an EP.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was starting to really get into like writing pop songs, and not necessarily like the genre of pop, but just like writing songs with like a structure, like a verse, a chorus, a verse, a bridge, a chorus, you know, like rather than just like free writing. So I think that was when things really came together for me. And I hadn't yet started, I mean, I guess I kind of had inspiration from music that I grew up listening to and like my family, but I was listening to a lot of like surf rock at the time. Like the OCs, Fiddler, Waxahachie, the Black Lips. So
Okay.
a lot of like surf rock and pop punk kind of. So I was I was kind of like into like skateboarding and like the punk lifestyle when I was like 16, 17, 18. So that's what I wanted to do at that time, and that's why I was in that band.
Okay.
And then I moved to Ireland, and music sort of was on the back burner. And then only since I've come home have I really started to, like, that's what the album is, self reflections, right? I started to
Yeah.
really like reflect. And that album started the journey of me going deeper into inspiration and things that came up for me when I was like a child, and music that would have been playing, and my aunts and my grandpa playing country music and bluegrass music. So that started to come out after I took some time off. And I think I needed to like go do that and learn about myself, and go deeper inward in order to produce music that was actually like true to me.
Gotcha, gotcha. No, so thank you very much for taking me through that journey. Fascinating
Yeah.
story. What I think I'm interested to know is that, so if we went back to self reflections, what would you say was the, having gone on all of those journeys and after having taken time off, what was the one thing that you found out about yourself that that has continued to evolve? What did you discover about yourself?
I definitely discovered that like I am a heart person. I am a feeler. I'm an empath. I feel everything really deeply, and that comes out in my music. So I guess like I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm a really honest songwriter, and you know, I tend to be a really honest person as well. And so I think that I learned that I'm not the kind of person that hides what I'm feeling or tries to cover it up with something else, or, you know, go about it a different way. I'm just like, here's me, here's what I'm writing about, here's what's going on. So that was something that I was like, oh, I can be this like super heartfelt, emotional, passionate person. And I think like I started to be like, whoa, I am like really passionate about music and dancing, and things that I, when I would just talk to other people, sometimes I would feel like I was like, oh, there's like a disconnect because I am like so deeply passionate about this.
Hmm.
And I, you know, sometimes would have a lot of like surface conversations. And I realized that I, you know, I go a lot deeper into my passion for music, and just for life in general.
That's so I'm so excited that you're able to admit that, because most people wouldn't. So a part of the conversation I've been having for the longest time, I think the one conversation that I've had for like 5, 6 years of my life now is that there's a tendency for us to put on this bravery, you know. There's a push from society and whatever you want to call it, about
Hmm.
bravery, about being strong and all of that. So when I hear people talk about wearing your heart on your sleeve and being passionate and being vulnerable, I really
Vulnerable.
get, yeah, I really get very excited to hear that people are proud to say that. So well done. It's good to hear. It's very refreshing. So again, I still hear some of those themes that you've mentioned in this current project that we're going to talk about.
Hmm.
But before we get there, I want you to kind of tell me what what your sound is. I know it's not a very fair question to ask because there are really no tight boxes. But I
Yeah.
was listening to your record, and I know it's very acoustic guitar driven, but even there, there's still just a soundscape that's hard to define, and it isn't quite country, it isn't quite pop, it isn't quite something. There's a uniqueness to it that I personally, and I've listened to like a ton of independent artists. I
Yeah.
keep talking to people, but there's just something unique about the sound that you create. So take me through this journey. What's the sound that you make? Well, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Madison music.
Okay.
But yeah, like it's definitely like a range. Like I like to bend the term genre.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like definitely have a roots country Americana or Canadiana sound. So
Okay.
that is coming from like me growing up listening to like Dolly Parton, Johnny Cash, Elvis, Joni Mitchell, growing up listening to like folk country Americana music.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that, and then also like rock and roll. So a lot of my
Mm,
music too is like classic rock based.
mm.
Um, and that is a huge inspiration for me. Like I love listening to the band, ELO, so Electric Light Orchestra. That's where I have a little bit of synth based music as well, especially on the
Okay.
first album. There's a song called Differences, and it's very like synth based. And then as well on the new album, there's some ballads, and I love writing ballads too. And I think that comes from listening to like Queen and kind of listening to rock ballads, and then also growing up in the early 2000s and listening to like Destiny's Child and a lot of like R&B music. I really liked Neo. I loved Neo. I don't know. There was something about Neo that I really loved.
Oh, he's a great writer. He's a great singer.
Yeah, I really liked Usher. So it's like this weird blend of like classic rock, folk meets like R&B, soul, pop ballads.
Okay,
And
okay.
that's the best way for me to describe it. It's just like all of these inspirations from like the beginning, which was like, yeah, the early folk, early country, early classic rock, and then coming into that like R&B, soul, pop, and that kind of just blending all of those together to make what this is now.
Wow. So that that mix that you've just spoken about, I think it is so well executed on this album because, like I said, it's it's familiar, but it's new. You say, I'm like, okay, I kind of heard this before, but I've not heard it presented in this kind of way. So I think that's a perfect segue to get into this record. And I've heard you describe the featured track from it or your lead single from it, "Running," as a as described as if Amy Winehouse and Johnny Cash has. Okay, but if you just want to explain to us why you would describe it that way and how you came about writing "Running" as a single.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Running is like a really special song to me. I wrote it before I went to Dublin, knowing before I left to Dublin that I was also going to be going to LA to record the album.
Yeah.
So I had like this feeling that I was like really just gonna go for it. Like I didn't know what was gonna happen, but I was just gonna, the metaphor, I was gonna pull the trigger. And that's kind of what the song is about. So I was pulling the trigger, I was running for it, but I also felt like I had climbed so high, and I've been like climbing and working at music for a long time. I put out the first album and the music I put out when I was 16, 17. So I felt like I had been climbing a lot of mountains, and I really was kind of tired, but I wanted to keep going, and I knew that I had to keep going. That's kind of the inspiration behind the songwriting. But when I sat down, I wrote the song. It was one of those songs, and this is what's happened with a handful of my songs, not all of them, but a few of them. I'll sit down without a real plan of how the song is going to go. Or maybe I'm just messing around. I wasn't even like, okay, I'm going to sit down and write a song. Like I just started. I remember the first like lyrics came out, and I was like, oh, that's not at all what I expected to write right now, you know? And so it was one of those songs that came out just like really authentically. I
Hmm.
was like, I wasn't trying to write any certain way, or wasn't like not trying to write in a certain way. I just kind of like let it flow. I didn't think it
Hmm.
was going to be on the album. I didn't know. Like, and then I wrote it over a few days,
Okay.
and I wrote like the first verse. Maybe it was just like the first like few lines. And then I went back to it the next day and wrote the chorus. And I wanted it to kind of tell a story. So I wanted it to tie in with the bridge at the end, which the lyrics everyone can go listen to and understand why I did the bridge the way I did it to kind of tie everything together. When I was writing the song, I was like, oh my gosh, like this song feels like, it actually felt like old like soul music or like old like music from like the 50s, 60s, like Etta James, that kind of feel, Buddy Holly, like that sort of like old like rock and roll rockabilly kind of sound, which was sort of like, yeah, even like Billie Holiday too, and that kind of like crooner sound, which was what was like I felt when I was writing the song. And I really, really am inspired by that music too. So, but then I also was like, no, but this feels like outlaw country. I was like, this also
it
feels like
old Western. Yeah.
Old Wild West. Yeah. And I wasn't trying to write a song like that. So that's why I was like, this is a heart song for me, because this is just what came out organically without trying to move it in any sort of way or shift it or create it in any sort of way. This is just what came out like a true song for me. So then I was like kind of like playing the song a whole bunch when I went to Europe. So I wrote this song like, I don't know, 4 days before I left to Ireland in February of this year.
Okay.
And then I went out there and I just started playing it for like everyone that I connected with musically down there. And I was playing it, I was doing open mics, and I was like playing these little songwriter session things. And I just kept playing that song, and it was getting like really good feedback. And people were like, people would come up to me after shows and they'd be like, that's not your song. They're like, did you write that? That's like an old like miners tune. People kept saying it sounds like mining music, like gold mining.
Gold mine.
Yeah. So I was like, no, this is my song. And you're actually right. It is like that. And so I kind of like started to think about how I wanted it to come out in the production stage. I just started taking notes. I really wanted like rattlesnake sounds, like shakers. I really wanted like gunshots. I wanted like that kind of like wandering sort of flowy guitar. And I envisioned like boots and like chaps and guns and hats and snakes and like all of that sort of like Wild West stuff. But then when I thought about the vocals, I was like, oh my God, like this is like Amy Winehouse. This is that like soul. So I really wanted to channel that like kind of, that like crooner, like soul, but like alternative. Because it's not necessarily like, it's more advanced and it's more in the songwriting. Like it's modern, right? It's not like writing necessarily how they would have written, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Like, yeah. So it was like a more modern twist on that. And so that's where the like Amy Winehouse came in. And the song is literally like climbing mountains just for water and wine. And I remember I was like, oh, I'm singing about wine. This is Amy Winehouse. And that was kind of, that's where it came. And then when I started doing the production for the song, it came out pretty organically. And that like sound that I wanted, which was like, Wild West meets soul, really.
Yeah.
It came out.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. We're going to get to the video in a bit, which is really remarkably done. But so the central theme of this song, if you were to not in one word, but what is this particular song driving towards?
Well, lyrically, it was kind of like what I was talking about in the beginning when I started to say about how I sat down to write this song.
Yeah.
It was like I had felt like I had been working so hard over the last, 4 years of putting out music. And it's hard being in a small town, and it's hard being an artist that doesn't have a lot of money, like I'm not like, I can't I have to apply for grants in order to be able to do a commercially produced album.
Yeah.
So I felt like, you know, I was climbing all these mountains and working harder than I've ever worked in my life. Like I work all day, every day. And, you know, these shows, like I'll play hundreds of shows a year. And that's so that I can survive. Like that's so that I can live and be able to not have to work a 9 to 5. Although I work harder than I would if I did, but I'm happy. You know, I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. But I felt like I was like, oh my God, like that's what that lyric is, climbing mountains just for water and wine. Because I felt like I was climbing and like working so hard, not to get recognition on my music, but literally just so that I could put food on my table. So that song was a lot about that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep running. And then the bridge is my fingers on the trigger, and I think it's getting clearer that I'm willing to put in the time. And like I feel like sometimes it's hard to not like get down and be like, man, like I've worked so hard and I've put out these albums and I've created this whole world for myself musically. Like, why is it not coming through? Or like, how come I don't feel like I'm getting the recognition that I deserve? Or like, I'm the only artist in my town that's doing this. But yet, like sometimes I just like don't feel like it's very recognized. So that song was just kind of like a power song too. I was like, hear me roar kind of thing, you know? So it was also just like me being like, you know, whatever about all that stuff, it sucks. It's things that I talk about when I get the opportunity to talk about it, but I don't like to talk about it all the time because it's not always the most positive thing, or I'm not trying to be like, buy my music, listen to me. I don't want to be that way, but it is a feeling that I have sometimes. But this song was like resilience through that.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So let me tell you what I've noticed so far in this conversation. You know, that passion you spoke about, I can hear it coming through right now, like how the intensity with which you are talking about this and talking about your music. And I do empathize would not be the word, but I do understand the state of the independent artist and all the hoops they have to go through, because I talk to independent artists like all day, every day. But to your point, I think beyond just writing it in the music, I think to your point, the ability to keep making music is in and of itself, resilient, and pushing back. So again, I have such a mad respect for independent artists, because people, they can't quite understand how hard this stuff is, and how hard you guys have to fight. So thank you for explaining that, and thank you for doing what you do, because that's how we have met here, and we're having this great conversation. So take me to the video. Take me to the video.
No, I appreciate the appreciation.
No, I know what it takes. I have a ton of friends who are trying to do this, who are trying to express themselves artistically and use the talents they've been given. So I know the process. That's what I'm trying to say, and it's not an easy one. But I'm glad that you're in it, and that you're pushing for it, and you're trying to live out what you've been called to do.
Yeah, for lack of better words, I'm running.
Yes, keep running.
Yeah. So yeah, the video. The video is about that too. So, I mean, the whole theme of the video, of course, is Wild West, Western, like late 1800s, like early 1910s, 1920s. I took a lot of inspiration, like from the fashion of that time.
Okay, and where was that shot? Just before you continue, where was the video
shot?
So
the music video was shot in Soyuz in BC. Soyuz and Oliver, BC. So that is like Canada's desert.
Okay.
So I wanted to shoot a desert music video, and I knew that I could not go to Arizona or Nevada. So Soyuz was where my videographer, shout out to Jeremy from Rising Action Pictures, he was like, hey, why don't you come out here where I live in Oliver and we'll shoot the music video out here in the desert. And I was like, yeah, brilliant. So I started putting together a storyline. I wanted it to be like I was on the run. Like I wanted it to be that I was like going through this journey. So the music video, I don't want to like give a whole plot synopsis here because everyone can go watch the music video. For sure. But it's, you know, it starts out with me like in my little cabin, in my like rustic wood cabin, and I'm like getting my photo taken because back then all people had was like a photo of themselves, right? Like that was like how you identified someone. And that was what you would like carry. That was almost like your ID, right? So, and it also showed like growth and change. That was the way to see like how families evolved or like how people changed and grew as they would take photos at different times in their lives. I mean, we still do that, but like it was more important then. So that photo was a huge like focal point of the music video. So then you see me like collect all my things and leave because I needed to go on the journey. I needed to climb the mountain and leave. So like we filmed on all these amazing like bridges and all of these like really, really cool spots that were just like, they were perfect themes for this song. You know, like I was crossing bridges, going into rivers, the scene where I'm like in the river with like the pot or like the whatever was like, was that I like saw that and I thought of like, what is, there's a show, I Love Lucy. And it's kind of like old school, like black and white films, that sort of theme, and just like being in the water. And it was like, baptizing almost. Like I went into the water and I was like renewed and I was like, okay, I'm going to keep running. Like I'm cleansed. I'm going to keep going. And that's where I like shed the layers and then I go and start to climb the mountain. So the music video was very like, was speaking to the journey, the personal career journey that I've also gone through, which is like, you know, starting out young, like starting out at home, leaving, going to Ireland, going abroad, climbing the mountains, and then going through what I feel this year is like evolution in my career, in who I am, in how I present myself as an artist. I feel like I am stepping into a new era of my artistry and just my personality, just like how I carry myself and present myself. I gained a lot more confidence over the last few years. And so that was the music video was kind of speaking to that. So when I get to the top of the mountain and I'm wearing the like dress and I'm feeling like a mountain woman, like a warrior. That was kind of like what I have also felt like I have gone through this year, because this year has been the biggest year for me career-wise. So I wanted to kind of show that in the video, that I'm like stepping into this new era. And it was a lot about like divine feminine, like stepping into my like power as a woman, as a female creator, and tapping into that kind of like passion. And also that like, you know, there's like a softness to what I do, but there's also a bit of an edge. And I think that my first album showed a lot of the soft side, but I wanted to show the edge as well. And so this video and this song and the whole album really show that side of me, I think. So yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about the album its entirety in a bit, but I just have two follow-up questions with what you said. It seems as though that you are very integrated with the video music making process. So is that something that appeals to you? Do you go like, do you storyboard? Do you like,
Yeah.
okay, I want this to be this way, I want this to be that way? Do you do that?
Yeah, I do, but then I'm also like very receptive to that when
Okay.
you get on set, it's going to be a lot different. And like I had this idea. I told Jeremy, I was like, I want a rattlesnake in the music video.
Okay.
I was like, we need to have a snake. So I didn't know if we were going to find one.
Yeah.
And then we get on the mountain, and sure enough, we're like driving, and there's a rattlesnake because there's rattlesnakes in a Soyuz.
Okay.
So there's a rattlesnake, and Jeremy like fixes up the camera and like sets it up and literally like gets that shot that's in halfway through the video of the rattlesnake.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to mention that part because it was really special to me, and I felt like it was an omen. It was a snake omen that it just like slithered by us, and it was so calm, and we were safe, like we were careful, obviously, and we were ethical, but yeah, it was like I had all these ideas, and I definitely like storyboarded it, and I had strong ideas for hair and makeup, which I did all
Hmm.
myself. Everything. It was just me and the videographer.
And there were some drone shots in there, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
right? Good,
Yes.
good. I loved it. I'm gonna come back to the video and talk about it because I'm a video person as well. But I wanna you mentioned that this year being the biggest year of your career so far. I want to ask you what you think has changed and why that shift is happening now. What's bubbling? What has come together to get you the traction that you're now having?
I think just like even what you said about the beginning, where you were like, "Oh, well, I feel like I've heard this music before, but it's unique and it's different." I think that I'm starting to create like a sound for myself
Hmm.
and a brand, if you will. I think I'm starting to kind of create a style and something that people can recognize as Madison.
Hmm.
I'm starting to create that. I guess I'm just like starting to find out who I am as an artist, sonically and visually, and also how I carry myself on stage. I got more in tune with being a front woman. Like I want you to come see one of my shows, because I
I
love to
will.
like, I love to like get down on the stage and like yell and like run around and dance and do the whole front woman thing. And so I think that I really started to step into that. Whereas before, maybe I was just a little bit shy.
Hmm.
I'm not a shy person, but I think I just was like, oh, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to be too big. And so I think going back to Dublin and then going to LA and recording the album, I was like, oh my God, it doesn't matter what, people think, or it doesn't matter like what I people assume me to be because I came from this small town, or like this box that the people from my hometown have put me in. I was like, that doesn't matter anymore. Like I get to be as big and flashy as I want to be. So that was it. I was kind of like, okay, I'm stepping into my stardom.
Awesome, awesome. So much to talk about here. So much goodness.
I
I just
know.
love your
I know.
personality. I love your vibe. So performance. I think when we started this conversation, you talked about going hard on performance. Where does that come from? Why do you feel that there's a need for you to be putting as much time into live gigs beyond beyond the money aspect of it, but it appears that there's a sense that you want to hone your craft. The more you play, the better you become.
Yep.
So if you could just speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely what it is. Like the more I'm performing and playing, the better I get at being a musician, being a singer, being a band leader, being a front woman.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like that part of it also, like, I think deep down, it's because I feel like if I'm not doing that, I'm lacking. It comes from a place of being like, I need to do everything. I need to do all of it all the time at once forever. So I'm a go-getter. I'm very determined. So I think because I love it so much now and it's so comfortable, I don't feel like obligated to perform. But I feel like I can't put out an album and not go on a tour.
Hmm.
I can't, like, I have to be playing like every weekend because I just like know that I'm good at it, and I know that every time I play a show, I get new fans and I get new listeners, and I make a little bit of coin, so it's like a bunch of different things combined. But I think also now, like, watching my favorite artist. So my favorite musician and artist right now is Maggie Rogers. I'm sure you know her.
Yeah.
She's incredible. And watching what she does on stage and what she's crafted for her live performances, I just get like a craving to do that. So I guess like that's it. I actually get like a craving to be on stage. Like, I'm like, if I don't play, I haven't played now for 3 weeks, and that's a long time for me. That's a long time. And so I'm ready to do it again. And I know I need to pace myself. Like, this last September and October were insane because I was playing so many different ways. I was playing with a full band, which is really exhausting, singing over a full band and dancing and stuff. And then I would play a duo with a guitarist, and I'd play keys. And then sometimes I would just do solo, where I would do like a set of keyboard songs and then a set of guitar songs. And sometimes I'd be playing for like 2 hours.
Wow. Which do you like the most, or they both have their place in your repertoire? Which do you find you like the most?
Definitely playing with a full band, because then the pressure is off of me for people to be analyzing the way I play guitar or analyzing the way I play keyboard. When I'm just singing and dancing, I'm doing the thing that I am the best at.
Gotcha. How many instruments do you play?
4.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Okay, so keyboard, guitar, what are the other two?
I play flute.
Okay.
So I've played flute for many, many years. And then I guess I'm counting harmonica as an instrument too.
Nice. No, that's like Stevie Wonder plays the harmonica. That's like a great instrument. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The album itself, I want I want us to talk about the album, and I think by the time we're done, I get to tell you what my favorite song is on the album. But Home is Where the Music Is. That's the title of the album. And tell me about that title, why it was important for you to name it that, and if you were to, just like I asked about Running, if the album is headed in one direction, what would you say would be that central theme that the album is driving towards?
Yeah, I mean, I think Home is Where the Music Is has been like a thing that I've been saying for a long time. I've always said like, oh, I'm home when I have my music. And even when I was in Ireland, I was still writing and I was still playing. I just like wasn't performing, and I wasn't like crafting an artistry vision for myself. But when I feel like disconnected from myself, or kind of like the concept of home might be a little fuzzy, like when I'm on the road, if I'm able to just like sit down and play my guitar or write or even listen to music, even if I'm feeling like, oh my God, I'm really like not okay right now, or I'm out of touch with myself, I just need to like listen to specific songs or play songs. And then I feel like home in my body again. And like home is, it's like a concept of like something tangible, like a house, but it's also like a feeling, right? And so playing music, listening to music, being in touch with music makes me feel at home. And so that's kind of where that theme came from, but then also that my home was always filled with music when I was growing up. And so like this song takes me back to my roots. So even though Self-Reflections was like reflecting on me, this album goes even deeper. And I think it reflects on, there's a lot of like little lyrics and a lot of little things that I throw in that people may or may not pick up. But there's a lyric in the song True Me that is, play my music and feel in tune because my home is in the song. And that's kind of like, I find myself in music a lot of times. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, that's how I feel. Like, that's who I am. Whether that's other people's songs or my songs. So that's kind of like the theme of home is where the music is.
Gotcha. And it would appear that you are a big fan of lyrics as well. How coming from your punk rock days, how do you think your writing has evolved, and where do you think you're now? Because I'm listening to it, and all through, I may not be able to give you one particular lyric now, but when I'm listening to an artist and I'm trying to understand where they're from. Like I'm really interested in seeing how they make words, how they bend words to do their bidding, right? I'm really fascinated about that. And you do that on this album a lot. So what is your relationship with writing right now, and how, like, would you consider yourself a lyricist, I guess?
Yes, I would consider myself a lyricist.
Awesome.
And I think like when I was writing, when I was younger, like 16, 17, 18, a lot of the songs were like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain because my head back then was just like, I was just writing about whatever had happened to me. And I think that hasn't changed. I write very much based on experiences.
Gotcha.
Which I think most artists do. Like, something happens to them, they write about it, they're processing. But I actually wrote a song this year that I didn't release, and I didn't want to release it because it was kind of like a joke, but it was called I Don't Write Love Songs. And like lately, I don't. I'm not inspired by romance.
Is that a whole other conversation we need to get into? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, like there's not a love song really on the album. They're all love songs for me. Like they're me being like, this is like who I am and this is how I navigate the world. And a lot of the songs are like mental health too. Like that song True Me. Taking a step outside of the house. That song is a lot about like self-discovery. And I think that's what a lot of my music is lately. So where I am now in my writing is I feel like I'm writing for me and songs that are like about me and my experiences, but it's a little bit more general now. And I find that like I'm getting messages from people who are like, oh my God, like I relate to that song so much. Or like with Don't Say No, for example, like that was me feeling like I was getting a lot of no's from the universe, a lot of no's from whoever, festival bookers, radio players, blah, 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 whatever. I was just like getting a lot of no's. And then I started to feel like I was saying no to myself. And so I was like, I just need to say yes. Like, don't say no. Like, I just need to like take a chance on myself. And I wanted everyone else to feel that way too. So I think a lot of my songs, like I'll end up with the theme of like writing about something I've gone through. But then when I start writing, it becomes a little bit more general and I'm trying to like speak to everyone else too. So that album definitely has a big theme of that. It's like these internal struggles or internal, not even like struggles, yes, but also like things that I've overcome. The word resilience definitely comes up a lot for me. But then also like putting that into just like putting it down in a way that people can relate to it too. And they can be like, oh yeah, like that makes sense for me in this part of my life. And then they can sort of like, you know, find their home in the song.
For sure, absolutely. Um, Things that we are overcoming, right? Um, I think that's very stated in the album. So, having said that, "Big Wave" is my favorite song on the album. So I'm going to be biased here
Cool.
to to just take me through the thinking process of that song and what it means to you.
Yeah, I wrote Big Wave early. This was an early song on the album. I think I wrote Big Wave like maybe about a year ago, actually.
Okay.
I wrote about this time last year. And yeah, I like remember when I was writing it, I was kind of the same thing. Like I was getting like frustrated that people were trying to like tell me what to do. That's obviously like the big hook in the song. Hate it when they tell me what to do. So like I was and this goes back to like live performance stuff. Like when I play solo, when I say the pressure's off, that's because like I'll go play a solo show and like I kid you not, I will have like 5 people, mostly middle-aged men, come up to me after the show and be like, "Have you ever considered playing with a band? Have you did you do you think that maybe it would help if you took some guitar lessons?"
Really?
Yeah, and I had someone, and this is like maybe even like not in the last year, because in the last year I've gotten to be a much better musician. But but 2019 I entered this competition, and I had and I did well, but I had someone come up to me. I had one of the judges come up to me after, and like they were like, "Can I give you some feedback?" And then just like gave me a bunch of feedback on my guitar. I was like, "Hi, I'm not a guitarist. I'm a songwriter and I'm a vocalist. Like, please give me advice on that." "Oh, you
Mm,
can't. So you're
mm.
picking out one thing
Yeah,
that."
yeah. No, but
So
that's such a short-sighted. Like if you do spend the time to know an artist, it's like saying a John Mayer isn't known for his vocal abilities. He's a guitarist, right? He's a guitarist
I
first,
know,
and then a music like a
right?
singer second, right? No, no. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So that was happening like way too often before I sort of broke into this new era. And now nobody says shit. No, they still do. They still do. But it's different because now I do play with a band, or now I just hone in where I know that I have my strong suits. But back then I was just trying to do everything.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that was what
yeah.
that song was about too. Like I just felt like I was trying to do everything all at once. And but inside I was like, they don't know. And so that was kind of like that lyric, like they don't know what's best for me.
Mm,
um like they don't know what I'm trying to do inside to like become better. um and then I also, when I was writing that song, felt like the wave was sort of like taking me, and I was like, okay, well, like things are changing and like I can't really keep up, but I'm going to make it happen somehow.
yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome. Um, you talked
Yeah.
about the ballads on the album. I think is it Too Long? There's a ballad on the album.
Too long. Yeah, too
I
long in
I
the last song.
I absolutely love Too Long. I think I listened to Too Long over, even though I say Big Wave is my favorite, but I love Too Long. I listen to it over and over again. But I think the project is just is complete. I think it's a
Thanks,
complete project,
Effie.
and I want to say congratulations for putting out good music. Like you hear a lot today. You hear a lot. So
I
when
know.
when I eventually stumble upon a musician, I am so excited to know that people pay this much detail to lyrics, to the music itself.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited. So congratulations on the album.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank you.
on Running. I think both are fantastic. Yeah, I'm really really excited to have found your music and to be talking to you today.
Yeah, I was so happy to share all of these things. And like halfway through the interview, I was like, oh my God, I want to talk forever. because you're asking all the questions, all the right questions, and like sometimes I don't get the opportunity to just like free flow like this. Like I did a global news interview, and I could, you know, you've gotten a sense that I can probably talk forever. But they were like, we have 7 minutes. And I was like, what? No.
No, this is so part of what we do here is to just like I try as best as I can to be as minimal as possible in my talking, and I just want the artist to say the things that you know they
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
get to say.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So so thank you so much. I wanna get a sense of what's next. Again,
Mhm.
this is not in any way to put pressure on an artist, but like what are you planning on going forward? What's happening? Just give us a sense of that.
Yeah, so I just applied for a new grant. So I applied for another Creative BC grant because I want to do an AI music video.
Okay.
So I'm working, I have someone who did my first music video for my song Fiction. We're
Okay.
going to work together again. And he's like really like trained and like well versed in the world of artificial intelligence. He's doing a bunch of stuff. So it's actually really cool that those like new like AI characters have
Yeah.
come out because that's kind of what I want to do. But I want to create like this whole world. So for the song Home, the first song on the album, which is the intro where my dad is talking,
Yeah.
I've actually written that into a full song. And I want to create a music video, an AI music video where there's all these like generated like different worlds that I step
Hmm.
into. And it'll
Hmm.
be like me, like with my guitar, like singing or whatever in all of these different little like worlds. So that video is going to be amazing. It's going to take the whole year.
Yeah.
Um, but it's going to be really, really amazing.
It's gonna be
I
worth it.
gotta get the funding, and then I also am putting together like a little EP, maybe just like 3 songs. So that song Home is gonna be a full song, and then I wrote this new song recently, um, called Feeling It Again, and it's kind of it's like a little bit alternative, a little bit pop punk too, going back to like some of my earlier inspirations, but it
Gotcha.
also kind of sounds like Don't Say No, so it's kind of like that indie pop.
Hmm.
That song I feel like is going to be really good, and I keep like playing it at home. I haven't played it live yet, but I'm like, oh yeah, this song is going to do something. So I have that coming out, and then I'm doing some acoustic versions of the songs on the album. I'm going to do Big Wave, and I'm going to do Don't Say No, and what was the other one? Maybe Fading. Yeah. So there's going to be 3 acoustic versions that are going to come out over the next year. And then I'm also going to go on another big fat tour.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so much exciting stuff coming up for you. I'm so pleased. So I say this before one of the signature questions we ask here is that there's the album that the artist desires to make, and the album they eventually get to make when it's all said and done. So if you were to look back when you started this journey, how close would you say you came to making the album you were longing to make? How close is the album you have right now on your palm? How close is it to the album you desire to make?
It's definitely close. And I say that because of the songwriting. The songwriting is like where I want to be. I've
Okay.
really refined myself as a songwriter and refined my genre. I know what my genre is now. It isn't really it's its own thing, right? But like I figured that out now. The only thing now is to work with like just to do like a bigger production in terms of like the studio that I'm working at and the musicians that I've hired. I think that I'm close with this album, and it's a perfect second album, but the third one is going to be like pristine. You know, like it's going to be yeah, like John Mayer quality, like Taylor Swift quality, like you know, it's going to take me to that next step, and that's just like working with different producers, right? So that it was always in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, I really want to like go to a big studio in Austin or in
Hmm.
Nashville where Americana music is really
Yeah.
strong. I think like going to LA, I got a bit of that, especially on the song "Don't Say No."
Okay.
And Big Wave. It was kind of that like The Strokes, sort of a little bit like rock, which is great, but I really want to do like a deeper album like Running.
Wow.
But a bunch of songs like that.
I absolutely love your music, Maddisun. Obviously love talking with you. I think we're gonna have you back. I think we're gonna have you back multiple times. But for now, I want to say again, congratulations on the album. When this is eventually cut together, I'm really looking forward to sharing your music with our audience and doing what we can to support this album and just give it the exposure that it requires, because I think it's a really good album. And to your point, you mentioned earlier that I would really love to see you play on stage. So
yes.
I don't know where we're going to find you. We're here in Edmonton, but whatever it is, we're going to keep out for
tours. I'll be playing in Edmonton in 2023.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We can't wait then. So it's been a lovely time talking with you, Maddisun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Ife. It's been great. The Make Studios, great chats. Thank you.
Thank you so much.